Hello there, and welcome to 3Spoonies. We're your hosts, Karen, Jo, and Claire. This is episode number 47, and we're discussing online representation. Join us as we dive in.
Are you drowning in admin? Struggling to keep up with emails, invoices, social media, or the endless to-do list that comes with running a business? Then it's time to call in Vicky Admin Fairy, an award-winning virtual assistant who brings order to admin chaos. Vicky works with all entrepreneurs, regardless of their background or abilities, to take care of the time-consuming tasks that slow you down. Whether it's managing emails, sorting financial admin, handling social media, chasing late payments, the list is endless. She saves business owners hours every week, reducing stress and ensuring everything runs smoothly. With 25 years of experience, a flexible, client-focused approach, and a reputation for going above and beyond, Vicky adapts to your needs, making your business more efficient so you can focus on what you do best. And the best part? You'll have more free time to grow your business, boost profits, or just enjoy life without admin headaches. Want to free up your time and get your business running more smoothly? Visit www.vickyadminfairy.co.uk or email hello@vickyadminfairy.co.uk to find out how Vicky can help you.
Hello, I'm Karen from Pony Pony Pony.
And I'm Jo from Bright Cat Business Solutions.
And Claire is currently dealing with Novocaine, as we're led to believe, so she'll be back next time. But when we're together, we are 3Spoonies navigating our way through life and business with not enough spoons. This week, we're going to be looking at disabled representation in online media, and we are joined by the lovely Zara Bain. Hello!
Hello!
Thank you very much for being here. Would you like to tell us a little bit about you and what you do?
Hi there, my name is Dr. Zara Bain. I have a PhD in social justice via philosophy. I identify as disabled, chronically ill, and neurodivergent of many, many flavours. And I spend my time running a social enterprise where we offer transcription and closed caption support and digital accessibility consulting to researchers, writers, and small businesses. You can find us at academicaudiotranscription.com or on socials, and we'll offer the links towards the end, I think.
Cool. Marvellousness. Thank you very much.
I can't look at the camera while I do it though. It's really weird. It's like all my neuro and stuff comes out, and I'm like, I've got to look up here while I'm talking about.
Oh, I've put what the googly eyes on the camera.
Oh, nice. Good trick. Good trick. Nice. Might try that. I'm gonna stick a post-it with a face.
It's the same idea. It's like, the theory that if you put anything with eyes on, people are less likely to shoplift or not put money into an honesty box. Anything that looks vaguely like eyes, and people go, oh, best behave.
I have a post-it in the shape of a hand that I've just written a face on that I'm just gonna
I kind of love that.
stick up here, but I've just got to stick it in a way that it's not going
Not
to
covering the lens.
Yeah, exactly. Right, that's actually quite useful. Yeah, so it's slightly above it, but that'll do.
No one will ever know.
No, we'll never know. Great. Fabulous.
So I'm going to pass over to Jo for the questions.
God, I've got to think of questions.
We can just chat
we've had a lovely chat beforehand, and our brains are now all over the place, literally.
Sorry.
That's all right. It happens a lot.
It does.
So yeah, we're talking about representation in online media, which, as we know, can be both good and bad. As a snapshot, what is your first thought when I say representation of disabled people in online media?
I want to have like a funny answer, but I don't. The rise of the disabled influencer actually is probably my first thought. And And it's weird because I've been online for a really long time, like a long time. I had my first internet connection sometime in like 1996 or 1998, and I'm now 40. So I was kind of like a wee thing, playing on forums for a long time. And obviously, as somebody who has been disabled, chronically ill, and neurodivergent all my life, pretty much, I have relied on social media and online spaces during many periods of being bedbound, housebound, off and on, that kind of fun time that we in our community know so well, I think, more than others, slightly more. But it's quite different now, isn't it? It didn't used to be like the way it is now. I did a bit of research before I jumped on the call, and there are now, if you type in disabled influencers, there's like pages and pages and pages of, admittedly, sometimes it's just the recycled content, but just like lots and lots of people and lots
There
and
is,
lots of,
there's loads of them. I may have Googled that.
yes, you
Because
may have exactly right. And it's not only the loads of the influencers, there's loads of listicles about the
yeah,
influencers.
Mm.
yeah.
Just
I bet
like,
it did give me a nice hit list.
yeah, yeah. It's just this long thing. And and it's, I think that 10 years ago, I mean, I know 10 years ago it just wasn't like that at all. It was
No.
not anything
No,
like
not the
that at all.
slightest. No,
Uh,
you'd occasionally have an Olympian who's taken out the box every few years, but
Tanny Gray Thompson, who actually incidentally was really active on social media. She's like a Twitter, she's very, very active on Twitter. I don't know if you know, she'd chat away on Twitter quite happily doing various bits and pieces. But it would always be Tanny Gray Thompson. And yeah, whereas now but I think, I mean, I guess this is the thing that was going to talk about at some point during the conversation, is I think it's probably the difference between the sort of DIY-ness of now and social media, where everyone
Yeah.
could just kind of jump on and start an account, not only one account, but they could have, an account for every platform,
Yeah.
with content that they can spread across them all. And we're all on the age of the kind of, building a personal brand, as we all know. um and that makes a difference, but no, it used to be not like that whatsoever. And I think maybe that's, I mean, what do you think? I think maybe that's probably connected to the fact that digital media really wasn't as developed 10, 15 years ago. I mean, Twitter only came out, what is it, YouTube only came out in 2006, 2008. Can you believe it?
Yeah, something like that. And it doesn't sound right in my head. It sounds
No.
like it should be much earlier, but it's
yeah,
Yes.
not.
yeah.
As is Google. But
Yes.
yeah, like you, I'm almost 40. So yeah, as a wee nipper, I was using the internet
Yes.
of the choice of AOL Online. Oh, yeah, AOL, America Online, sorry. But yeah, I recently Googled the influencers to sort of find out who they are, what they do, what we could maybe approach them about talking to us about if they would be so kind. But yeah, it's sort of, there's those people who I'm sure get a lot of positivity, but there's the trolls there as well, and it's
Yeah.
like
Mm.
it must be worth it to actually sort of put yourself out there. I mean, even when sort of we were wee nippers, I don't think they had the forums and things that
Yeah.
people discussed their disabilities. It was
No,
still very hidden.
it wasn't a thing. And so that's so interesting, because I think there's a few bits. I think one, there's going to be like a self-selection bias, and that if you
Mm.
backtrack and you go back, if you and I were to travel back in time to the 90s and find out, the list of people that we were talking to on online forums, probably spending way too much over, like, do you remember dial-up? Do, 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 do.
Yeah, yeah.
I
IGNRS
still get
232
twitchy.
modem.
Yes. Yeah,
I
yeah.
remember
Sending
upgrading
your
to
mum and dad's phone
28K.
bill. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
28K up to 56.8. What was it? And then racking up a phone bill because you've been on the internet, you forgot to log off or whatever.
I
But
was only allowed on it after 6 o'clock when it was free.
yes, exactly. And I
Yeah,
forgot about that. Yeah, 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 right. And weekends, right?
Yeah,
And
yeah, yeah.
your parents having to kind of constantly find the best deal so that you could use the internet because you were absolutely obsessed with it. But if you were to backtrack back to those days and those forums and kind of find out, who everybody actually was and where they are now, I bet money that a significant proportion of those people that we all used to talk to actually have transpired to either have had chronic illness disability that we didn't know about, or that they, so either that they didn't know about, didn't think in that way, or you know, or to be neurodivergent, and to otherwise kind of have this sense of like, I don't know, you know, either practically, like if you're stuck in bed, there's just nothing you can do. It doesn't matter how good you are at being social in the world, you know, you're just not going to be able to go to the park like your mates are. So you're going to be having to find alternatives, right? But if you add being neurodivergent to that, the likelihood of needing to find these sorts of spaces and places to connect, I think, is probably going to be high too. Um,
Mm. Yeah, I remember back in about 2000, there was Julie's Joint, which was like a chat room and forum for MS specifically, but there were loads of other people with different conditions who were there because there wasn't anything else. So I think you're right on that. And also the fact that now there's a bit more openness, whereas, you know, back in the day, you'd be like spingly spangly 27 or whatever. And like, I remember talking on a forum to someone and then ages later finding out she was in my sister's class at school.
oh
And
wow.
you know, stuff like that. But yeah, it's that, and potentially people who are on the obsessive fan fiction X-Files community might also have been a bit neurospicy, putting it out
Yes.
I mean,
there.
I was on like an X-Men fan fiction a lot, um, and message boards and things. So yeah, I imagine most of those people were neurodivergent.
Well, so funny in the context of the company, I encounter people who do research into all manner of things, and we also do like feature researcher interviews and blah 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 as part of our kind of like newsletter. And one of the people whose work we supported last year is a PhD. She's not a PhD, she's finished a PhD, but she was doing a piece of research into fangirls as a kind of category, and specifically fangirls for Harry Styles. Shout out to Ava Boosie, whose research is Dr. Ava Boosie, in fact. But we are in the business, we're kind of prepping her interview, and one of the questions I said to her was, do you find that when you're researching these fandoms and these fangirl communities, is there a representation of neurodivergent people that is kind of higher than you would expect? And she also identifies as neurodivergent herself. And her answer came back as basically emphatically yes. You know, yes, there is this kind of, and you know, because the question I asked was, is it that when you find a fandom, it's almost like a shortcut to belonging? You don't have to worry
Mm.
about the social cues because you know stuff about a fandom, so you can connect with people, and your kind of belonging can come from the fact that you're both nerds about and fans of the thing without having to worry so much about the social stuff on top. And it was just really interesting that, I mean, so she's not a researcher of neurodivergent people in communities, but she's a researcher who happens to have, you know, found a space where I think there's probably a bit of overlap, and yeah, it was like, yeah, there's the
Yeah,
kind
that does
of
not surprise me.
yeah,
It's like
I know,
if
I
you're
didn't
that
think it
obsessed
was.
about something, you have to be neurodivergent, surely.
Yeah, I think, well,
Well,
very
also, I think
likely. Sorry.
safe spaces before safe spaces that,
Yeah.
That's such an interesting thought. We were all out there kind of crafting these safe spaces for ourselves. I mean, you know, there was a downside, right? Because as soon as you
oh
moved into
yeah,
the online chat rooms, they were open very often, unless you had mates who could set up their own ones. I had some friends who had private chat rooms because it was kind of, you know, so we were on, they would have their own server rather than being this kind of like in the AOL chat, or, you know, on, for me, it was Virgin Media was mine. We didn't use it because it was a CD that came through the post, wasn't it? The AOL CD.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
We didn't have that. We had Virgin Media, and so I ended up finding Virgin Media's. They hired a guy who was involved in the end with the .com kind of like boom and bust as it became, and he was effectively selling sort of, you know, youth communities to Virgin, and it was called the Junction, thejunction.net, I believe. And so it was this kind of moderated chat room that was supposed to be safe for young people. Obviously, I was too young. I was the youngest by a couple of years, but everybody else was about, you know, 14 plus. I think I was about 12. Um,
Yeah. Standard,
but
right?
yeah, and then funny again in hindsight, a lot, not everybody, but you know, a number of people actually who were in those groups, because we all used to go, I mean, as years progressed, we all stayed in touch. We all used to go and meet up at various places. We'd have meetups in London and Manchester, um and kind of hang out, and actually I can think of a handful of people who definitely had like ME, for example.
Mm.
Yeah.
um uh and then other people who were probably neurodivergent in hindsight, right? Because at the time we didn't have that language really particularly.
No, but apparently we tend to find each other.
Yeah, I heard
Mm.
that one too. Yeah. Yeah, often in ones, right? We have
Yeah,
lots of one-on-one relationships with other neurodivergent people because that's our
I prefer 3 because then I don't have to talk all the time.
yeah, I like three to
Yeah.
manage it. It's a good you can just parallel play, right? Sitting.
Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So I am quite amused still that 20 years apart, my best friend on introducing me to someone she met at college said, Joe's going to be quiet for a while. It's nothing against you. She'll talk when she's comfortable.
Yeah.
20 years later, I was someone I'd met online who I'd never actually met in person at that point,
Yeah.
brought a sister with and said they pretty much exactly the same thing to her. Hi. I'm just going to sit here quietly till I'm comfortable.
Hi,
Then I will tell you the randomest stuff.
yeah, then I'll tell you. By the way,
Oh,
when we logged on, we should record it for this, for the sake of the recording, that when I logged on today, having never met you guys before, within about 5 minutes, we were talking about the fact that if your body knows that you've got eyeballs, it will kill them, according to Joe. So
I was calling to Karen, but yeah, I've heard that too. We also talked about lots of other random things because that's what happens.
yeah, it's fun. So it's interesting to think about the online kind of movement and actually how, like, representation in online spaces has been, in a way, I guess, accidental, that there was this accessibility about online spaces. So if you were a kid, if you're a sick kid like I was, or if you were a kind of neurodivergent kid, that actually, gravitating towards this thing that, in a way, that at the time, actually, I'm gonna say this, it used to make you a complete pariah, right? Oh, did you meet your friends online? And then now, seeing that shift was
Yeah,
really interesting, right? Over the 2000s, where in the 90s and the very early 2000s, it was like, oh, did you meet your friends online? And then, like, everyone's like swiping left on like Facebook dating apps or whatever, like 10 years later, 15 years later.
I'd forgotten about that, but yeah, they did.
Yeah.
Especially as I used to talk to a variety of Americans, so I'd be on late at night because I'm a night owl.
Yeah.
Um,
I know that one.
and yeah, it's like, oh, your friend in America. Actually, yeah, we were
Yeah.
really close for a good few years.
well, that or they're going to murder you. Although my
Yeah,
sister was connected to someone who claimed to be Aaron Carter. If you remember
Oh,
Aaron Carter, I'm not sure I
yeah.
would have if it, but yeah, she was very young at the time, but she was convinced it really was Aaron Carter, and that was a thing. But I have successfully managed to avoid being murdered by any of my online contacts so
Same.
far. So statistically speaking, it's probably all right.
Yeah,
well,
same.
my husband, he had a load of friends on World of Warcraft when that was first a thing,
Right.
and they agreed to all meet up and go backpacking across Europe. He was the only one that turned up,
Oh.
Oh.
but he went, "Oh, I've got my ticket," and he spent 2 weeks backpacking around with Europe. He said it was great.
I bet he made loads of really good mates. Quite a good story.
Yeah,
Meet people as
it's,
you go. It's all right.
yeah. I mean,
I'd
neither
have,
of us could do it now. We're broken, but
yeah. I'd have been really annoyed when I logged back on though. When I went back online, I'd been like, you fuckers.
yeah, that's what I'd
Oh
have done.
yeah,
It was
and
like, hate
how?
you, no.
How dare you? I got everything ready and I was expecting you to be there and you never showed up.
Yeah. Um, I'll see again, that question's gone. So yeah, we sort of had this rise of like disability forums or like places. Now, there are 2 different types of disability sort of corner of the internet.
Hmm.
There is the information supportive side, and there is the toxic positivity, everything's going to be fine, just do this side. And sometimes they overlap, but I find often they don't. Yeah, you have to be really quite selective where you're going these days because there is so much. Do you
Yeah.
find that as well?
Yeah, yeah, I think it's interesting. I think I experience more of overlap because I think it's interesting to think about. So I haven't really spent that much time. Probably did when I was a teenager, when I was about 14. Full disclosure. So had uh I was diagnosed with ME via kind of glandular fever, which at the time you couldn't test for when I was 14 years.
Mm.
So this is back in like 2000-ish. And so I think probably then, because I was already quite familiar with the internet, I would probably went online looking for like ME forums, right? Because that would have been a thing. And I think my experience of them was actually quite challenging because one of the other slices, which is kind of, I don't know if it's even one that you've included. So maybe there's more than that. One of the ones is where you find newly diagnosed people. This is really controversial. Everyone's going to hate me about this out of your audience. Sorry, everybody. Sorry. There's that thing when people get newly diagnosed and the world has ended. And so everything's collapsing. They're going through the kind of live grief process. And it's really important, like super important, that they can share that. But if you're trying to kind of come out of that, right? If you're trying to exit that grief process and find the positive support people, but all you've got is that the world is ending people, that can be a really hard mismatch. So it's not that the world is ending people are wrong. It's just that you could not be in that place anymore or not want to spend any more time thinking about how shit everything is. And actually, sometimes there might be an online space, there might not be online spaces that are kind of supporting that growth. At the same time, you then also have this like toxic overcoming stuff, right? Where it's like, don't worry, it's fine. Or the one that gets me, again, sorry everybody, and I did this myself and I had to come out of it, is the like, I'm a warrior, I'm a warrior, you know, insert condition here, warrior. Well, I'm gonna overcome it. I'm overcoming all my conditions. And it's like,
and if you're not overcoming it, you're not working hard enough.
yes, or you're
Yeah.
negative, right?
Yeah.
And you're making other
Yeah.
people down, right? Because you're, because you're supposed to, I do X despite having Y, right?
Yeah.
And it's like, and actually the thing that I've learned, I think over my 30s especially, with some other stuff that happened to me, was that no, you kind of do it alongside, like it's all just part of this messy, it's all just part of the messy pile. All right, like
Yeah.
it's all part of the messy pile. And I don't see the things that I do as being, despite having had ME since I was 14, which turned out in my 30s to get not re-diagnosed, but it turns out I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome and I've got connective tissue disorders and I've got MCAS and I've got POTS, I've got this and that.
They're all connected from what I hear.
Yeah, some people, there's like their tripartite conditions, and also been being diagnosed with ADHD, and I'm probably not got autism. I'm probably autistic, just to follow the language that's preferred by the community that I agree with. But they, around my end, they separate out the diagnostic processes, and ADHD is actually much less kind of a sort of violent and negative system. So it's like, are you a bit, it's that thing in a way, this is going to be terrible again, where like, the ADHD diagnostic sometimes is a bit like, are you a bit quirky and a bit forgetful? And the autism one is like, are you obsessive about certain things? And do you fail to kind of make friends? And so there's this sort of different,
Yeah.
we call it like a valence, right? There's a different value that's put in a way on the sorts of dysfunctions that you get with ADHD than versus the autistic ones. And it just so happens that for me, like I haven't been able to open the door on the autistic ones because it's such a depressing like form, whereas the ADHD one was a bit more neutral.
Well, it's good to know. I've got both of them to fill in, so
yeah, I mean, it
I
might be
think
different because it's different for every location. And to be honest, they should just do. I've got because of the internet. I've got mates in Canada and America. It's just a combined diagnosis. It's like it's the same assessment. It should just be assessed together. Shouldn't.
Yeah, that's the thing. I went for it's not the combined diagnosis, but for the two at the same time because I was like, if one masks the other, then there'll be awareness of it. But yeah, I think you're right, sort of especially for the autism one, sort of looking at your childhood. So were you a miserable child who everyone hated, who had no friends, and it's like
Did you struggle with social interactions? Can you not understand social context? It's.
are you wrong fundamentally?
Just like,
I
are
was
you a wrong un? Just in big letters. Just
Yeah,
in
yeah. Well,
quote.
like one of the questions was, why is two like seven? And I instantly went, oh, because the diagonal line. It's like, no, it's because they're numbers. And I'm like, this feels like entrapment. Like,
I've got deja vu. I've heard someone mention that one before. That one comes up all the time. It's
yeah,
the
I'd
one.
imagine that's one that everyone goes, huh?
Because
why
they
is this a
can't. 'Cause
question?
they- Yeah, and I've heard that one come up a lot, and it being like a trick question. Um, the ADHD assessment as an adult is like, do you interrupt? It's various ways of asking the question, like, are you a bit much? Just are you a bit much? Just,
Yeah.
Just a little bit much. If it's chaos much, too much. And then includes things like, do you have car accidents? Have you pranged your car? Because apparently the likelihood of you having, if you've got unmedicated ADHD, you're more likely to have minor car accidents, maybe major ones, but I don't like to think about that, so I'm going to not think about that. But like, you know, you're more likely to prang a car if you've got ADHD than you are if you're not got ADHD. But I asked the guy who did the diagnosis for the ADHD stuff, like, can we talk about the autism? He's like, no. Just, no.
Separate. I don't know that bit.
Yeah. But you're right, Karen, you know, they mask each other and they interact. So if you've got ADHD, it's not the same presentation as if you've just got ADHD or if you've got, you know, if you're autistic. How do we get to this? I'm sorry. I remember there was a thread. Look, oh,
But going back is always difficult.
yeah. Go forward. Let's just keep
Yeah, always
climbing.
go forward. Karen, should we take a break?
I think we should, while we consider how we got here, not in a metaphysical sense.
It can do that
Let's,
too, though.
yeah, I mean, if you can do the metaphysical in the
Yeah,
next minute or
sure.
so, you do you. But also listen to these lovely offers from our sponsors as we head into Spoonsful of Loveliness.
Attention, all small business owners! Are you ready to elevate your marketing game? Meet Escape the Village, your virtual marketing department based in the heart of Wiltshire and with national coverage. With over 30 years of experience, our founder Liz Graney and her expert team specialise in crafting tailored marketing strategies just for you. From managing a blog and SEO optimisation to content planning and social media management, we have everything you need to grow your business. Whether you're a small local business or a growing business, we understand your unique challenges and are here to support you. Plus, we offer free marketing mini audits and exclusive membership options for charities. So, why wait? Visit escapethevillage.com today and let us help you escape the ordinary. Remember to sign up for our monthly newsletter too, packed full of tips. At Whatmore & Co Accounting, we provide accessible first accounting, helping without jargon or judgment. We proudly support SME businesses, with a particular focus on those led by neurodivergent, disabled or otherwise marginalised individuals. Our clients trust us to deliver clarity, consistency and compassion in every service, from end-of-year accounts to tax planning and bookkeeping. As one client shared, Lawrence made it painless. They get it. No need to explain. Schedule your free consultation today on our website. Visit whatmoreandco.com today. Whatmore & Co. Accounting that understands your business and your needs.
Welcome back. We are talking about online representation for disabled people. Now, just as a thing, we are recording this in August with all the supposed changes from the goddamn government. There's been a lot of backlash of disabled people online recently. I mean, there always is some, but it's mushroomed. Do you find in your online spaces that you'd normally just be interacting, that you've come across this a lot? Or is it just me because I read Twitter for fun?
You gotta get off Twitter. Like, you just
I
gotta,
mean,
you just
I
gotta.
don't interact.
No, Twitter's, well, because isn't there this thing where both as a business and as an individual, I used to be really active on Twitter. I think I had like 10,000 followers on Twitter. I was like 10, 12. I was like on Twitter, really on Twitter. And it used to be amazing. I made so much disabled community there, again, internationally. Like, all of my stuff was on Twitter from about 2012, 2013 onwards until about the last 2 years. And then when I don't like saying his name. I just, I used to call him Ellen Misk.
That'll do.
Or, or just,
I
took
like it when
over.
people call him Elmo.
Elmo, yeah.
No, because Elmo's lovely and Elmo
Yeah,
wouldn't
Elmo
hurt
Karen.
Yeah,
people.
Yeah.
Elmo's a friend.
How about just that twat?
that's what
Yeah,
I'll do.
yeah, yeah.
You just call me that fucking guy. When that fucking guy took over. I mean, he's fucking awful, isn't he? Listen, he's a scion of a South African diamond mine like family who's, I keep encountering him in kids' movies from the 90s. I've got two toddlers, right? So he's just like he's had this whole career where clearly he's been built like set on like world domination for a really long time. And you keep encountering people who are just like, well, he must be really good because he's a billionaire and SpaceX exists and he's got Tesla, and you're like, do you? I have a hobby. One of my sideline hobbies is collecting stories of how Tesla cars are just really bad. Where like the
And
lots of
also,
that.
Tesla would have hated it.
Yeah,
Like, Tesla
Yes.
wanted to give everyone free electricity and thought women were the future. It's
I didn't
like,
know that. That's a good fact. Thank you for more good facts. Really, was he kind of like what, like electrical socialist, basically,
Yeah.
feminist
with a
socialist?
ray gun.
That I think that more socialists should probably have ray guns. I think that that might change the politics considerably if
He
we can make that
wanted
happen.
to work for the betterment of humanity, and then he came up against Edison, who is very much like that twat. He just collects everything, patents it, and goes, "This is mine. I made
Yeah.
it." So, no, you didn't. Somebody else did.
Love me. I made the thing that you need. No, no.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. So I just yeah. Anyway, so I'll stop my that fucking guy rant. But yeah, no. So Twitter used to be a really good space, but it's yeah. So I don't know what it's like now, but I know that it's really bad.
A cesspit.
Well, and
Yeah,
that was deliberate, wasn't it? Like he took it
Yeah.
over so people would stop telling him to shut the fuck up. You know,
Yeah.
yeah, and it
like,
gives you stuff that will make you angry and sad. That was the point where I was just like, I have to come off when it was
yeah,
showing me absolutely hateful things. It's like you've never had any indication that I would think this was a positive thing. And it's just
yeah.
like, no, I just can't.
Yeah, yeah. And it's that thing, isn't it, where like, people started talking the sort of don't feed the trolls movement that was like, you've got to stop, a lot of us were like, let me quote tweet this and say why it's wrong. And it's like, no, don't do that because you're posting that you're giving air to, and the algorithm likes that, and it's getting
Mm.
eyeballs on all this negative stuff. And while it can feel really good to kind of like have your say and vent and make the counter argument, actually sort of understanding the ecosystem of how Twitter works and how people reading Twitter kind of work as well, that actually that's not a very good thing to do. And so, block and move is the right thing to do. So I think that's what I used to do, but I did have my fair share of, that. And sometimes it would be like I followed a lot of people who like black women disabled activists in the US, for example. There are a few that I can think of from the UK from way back, but the preponderance would be, and they would get this kind of horrible conjunction of kind of like really racialized, kind of like
Yeah.
ableist rot, like, and it would be like really just this hose pipe.
Mm.
And then I'd get my like one nasty comment from somebody called like Deborah in the Southwest, who'd be just like, "Well, you're not a real disabled person." It would ruin my whole day, and I'd be like, "God, I'm just a big baby." It's probably offensive to babies,
There,
but
there are a few people on Twitter who are still fighting the good fight, as it
yeah, well,
were.
they're going
Yeah.
down with the ship, as they say. But I don't know
Yeah.
what the value of that is, and
They get a lot of hate. A
it's
lot.
Well,
just
it's also when people are paid to be the worst.
right because they've
Just the
monetized it now.
worst. Yeah, that's,
And
if you're saying something insightful that people can go, oh, that's interesting. I hadn't thought of that. But when it's just like, let's say the worst thing that will upset the most people and
yeah,
you're rewarded for that, it's no.
and that's become part of what the sort of so-called freedom of speech brigade want. But it's ironic because you're not actually allowed to criticize them. It's just
Yeah.
that they're allowed to
No, no.
say hateful things. So no, I've been quite lucky, but I find it's weird because I've sort of come off Twitter. And then I think I've sort of followed. There's been like an exodus of all the wordy people went over to Blue Sky and the academics as well. So it's like, and I'm kind of there because my academic networks are there as well. But not just that. Happily, like I found Alice Wong. Just to think of like disability people, Imani Barberin. Again, lots of them are US based. A lot of people are starting this kind of migration while also refusing to kind of, leave the sinking ship that is Twitter. And then I haven't used Facebook that much. I don't use Facebook for family and friends because, funny enough, actually, because too many of my family and friends would share these fucking horrendous memes about disability. You know, so
Yeah.
and it's that thing where you realize that like people that you're in community and in family with will think it's okay to share like it's one that sticks in my head. And they're always racist as well. So, it'd
Okay.
be like a
Mm.
side by side of some kind of global majority person who's like an amputee and they're working in a field, and it'd be like, oh, if they can manage to work, then why is it that, white British person and mobility scooters like on it'd be like that kind of thing that would be get shared as me. And you just think I don't want to see that. I don't want to see that. I don't want to engage with it.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
that's kind of my policy because I think I this is me being really wussy. I find it fraught enough dealing with non-disabled people in general. Like now as I enter into I forgot basically to actually I might have to market the business. Look, story goes, I had enough of an academic community on Twitter. These are my 10, 12,000 followers because I spent a couple of years doing a blog for disabled research students, and sort of because there was no one talking about it. No, now there's everybody's talking about it in those spaces. That I started the business doing transcription and closed captioning support, and people just bought my services without me having to sell. It's great. I didn't have to do that much. And then COVID hit, Twitter got bought out, everything kind of fragmented and fell apart. And this year has been the year of me going, like, after 2 or 3 years of really challenging kind of market environments and not getting enough sales, I actually have to sell. Yeah, well done, Zara. Like, eventually, I have to actually learn how to sell things and market and do all this kind of stuff. So I have been doing that, and that means I've been joining business communities. And that has been a really mixed bag
It
because
is a really mixed bag.
Mm.
yeah, it's really interesting because there is lots of them on Facebook and Instagram, as you probably know.
Yeah.
Or we can talk about LinkedIn separately because that's a whole other world. The disability
Uh-huh.
influencers on LinkedIn are like another level. But so yeah, a lot of the online business owners seem to be in fact be disabled, chronically or neurodivergent. So there's this
Um,
overrepresentation. But then
yeah, but there's 25% of business owners are disabled in the
which is
country.
because that's 25% of the population,
Yeah.
right? Because
And
that's just
we
a
can't
number.
usually do normal jobs.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because no one will make accommodations.
no,
No.
right. So there's an overrepresentation, but then you're in the kind of slightly sticky world where people won't always identify. So they'll
Mm.
be like, as I was for many years, I'm sick, or I'm, the kind of that grayish area. But no, you're right, yeah. But then you'll end up with you know, the people who are like big influencers, but they're out to go and, cure autism, or they're out to, or as we find, right? So we're just launching a new product and we're building a new audience because I, have discovered the online course space. It's the whole thing where everyone's like, you can make 10K a month just building your online course and selling it to everybody using this very simple steps. And none of the fuckers have captions. Like
Ah,
they're all doing
Mm.
online courses and videos, and like I've bought a bunch, and if they've got captions, they're also captions. Um, and if they've got transcripts, they're not really edited very well, and that will be like the top end. So they might be thinking about disabled representation in their sort of spaces in terms of, oh, we've got some neurodivergent people, or they might be like, how do we make an accessible event in person? But they don't really seem to be thinking more generally about like what the needs are of this really, I mean, it's a really diverse community, and the needs that we all have is really,
Mm.
really diverse
yeah.
as well. And so that can be tricky, and pushback I feel like is something that's hard to do in business communities. I don't know if you guys find this, like when you try and raise it, there'll be the people who are like, into inclusivity and representation and like okay, and they're fine, and they'll take the call out and the call in, and because there's generally they're already some kind of marginalized identity, or they've got other kind of they're already disabled. And then there's everyone else who'll just be a bit like awkward. Can't believe.
Awkward. It's not a problem. La 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 la.
Yeah,
Yeah, or get defensive with it. And
yeah,
like that's the thing I think we all have to acknowledge we're always learning. There'll be something we've not considered or something we've not come across, and you have to sometimes go, okay, I'll do better, or I'll consider it. Or sometimes you have to say, well, I can't do these five opposing things at once.
Yeah.
But yeah, there are some simple things that could be done that would help a lot
Yeah.
of people.
100%, 100%. And even just the openness to have the conversation. And like,
Yeah.
one of the things that I used to bang on about online is that like this bit that when people often start their accessibility journey, they start thinking that they were like, oh, I want to be fully accessible. How do I be fully accessible? Or they think about selling themselves as being fully accessible. And then you take like 10 disabled people and realize that actually to be accessible to those 10 disabled people might still leave you with another 10 disabled people who, for whatever reason, can't actually access your materials.
Mm,
Because access needs conflict, because in this, I'm like, I have a thing where I write, I talk too much. You can tell I've got ADHD and I'm probably autistic, and I run an online business, so my emails are big and all the information has to be there because I know people are gonna go and check back. They're not necessarily going to be able to like read it once. They might be energy impaired like I am, but if you're dyslexic, it's completely shit. Like, I'm not, like, it's not great for people who are dyslexic and have kind of like visual processing issues. It's not what you like, you don't want too much information. So, it's just, I think you're totally right, Karen, like being willing to sort of accept that we're all on a learning journey and it never stops. And the best you can do is just to keep doing your best, um,
mm.
and not be like, oh, I've done it as a box that I can. I mean, literally, I did it.
Oh yeah, I've done accessibility. Complete. Ta-dum.
There is a philosophy, they're not going to watch this podcast, and even if they did, I don't care. So I'm from academic philosophy, and I've done this work in and around academic philosophy for a bit, and there's an events page where all the events in philosophy, like, people can make listings and stuff, and we tried to communicate to them, or tried to get them to basically give granular access information, so to update their forms, so that it was an accessibility form with different things you could input to say, and it has that, is there a ramp? Is there step-free access? Is there a rest space? Is it scent free? Is it, blah blah blah, etc. And they thanked us, and then just literally put in a tick box that said, is this event fully accessible? Instead.
Oh no.
Oh gosh.
And so it was like,
And you can guarantee they went accessible. Tick.
and they were just like, whoa, these disabled, and it was me and this other disabled woman, and because there's gender stuff that plays in too, and it was just like, these disabled women are asking a lot, but we think that we can just simplify this, even though we know nothing about this. We'll just put a single checkbox. Why would we need eight sort of like fields on a form when we could
Well,
have a
also,
checkbox?
what works for one person? Like, someone might want strong light because, say, they use sign language or Makaton, they need to be able to see people's hands. Someone else might go, that light is far too bright. I'm, sensory awful. To just say, yes, it's perfect for everyone. Unless everyone's in like an individual bubble, and even then, that's not going to work. And I don't know.
It's worse than useless.
I know, just what were you saying just reminded me of like the PIP form, when they answer
Yeah.
you and go, you said this, but we decided that wasn't the case. It's like, it's that kind of mentality.
Yeah. And it's like, yeah, they know better than we do. And you're like, you don't know. And you
No.
don't, and again, are you investing in it? Are you spending money talking to, like, are you getting disabled led,
Mm.
accessibility support, from disabled voices who know what you're doing? And again, if you think about it in the context of, what you said, Joe, like 25% of business owners are disabled, whether they identify it as or not.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot of us out there doing different things. Um, yeah, no, it's silly. So no, I think that just to kind of cycle back, because I do remember where we started in terms of, trolls online. I think it's really hard, isn't it? Like navigating these spaces and places, because insofar as every community that we might want to be in might also have an online component, right? You can't separate out the online from the in-person anymore. I think there's like a divide, whether you're into bell ringing, or you're into like baby wearing, or you're into kind of like, marketing, there's going to be an online version of what it, group, and then you're going to be kind of confronted with sometimes in passing and sometimes not. And sometimes it's the worst bit that it again, the people that you think are like sound in other ways, and then they'll just drop like a disability ableist clanger, and you're like,
Yeah.
no.
Mm.
And in a way, for me, that's more challenging because I can kind of root out the trolls because I don't hang out in public comment spaces, you know.
There's
Um,
always that thing of, did they realise what they just said?
People do, I think. Yeah, and well, no, I don't know. What do you mean in terms of whether or not they realise what they said was just egregiously offensive?
Or like the implications sometimes when they
Yeah.
talk about someone being brave and
Oh,
for living their life, and it's like, well, what's the alternative to that? Think through the implications of what you've just said. It's
I've had
not
Yeah.
very pleasant.
The
I've had
people are
that in
trying to be
person
helpful,
before.
they're trying to be positive and be good people, but they just slip up and say something that they really shouldn't. And it's like, do they know?
Yeah. I don't know. And it's interesting because I think that there is this thought, isn't it, where like disability is the last bastion of kind of like real discrimination, even though that's nonsense because like all the other forms of
Oh
discrimination
gosh,
are
yeah.
really alive
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Yeah.
well. But there is a way in which I think that there's less, this is changing though, but there's less public understanding of what it means to be discriminatory and oppressive actually against
Yeah.
disabled people, I think. Whereas, I think that like when it comes to other kinds of my PhD is actually on knowledge and ignorance in like systems of oppression. So I struggle with this question because there's a way in which I'm just like, well, when people are saying something racist or sexist, they know that it's racist or sexist because the world tells them. That's not always true because you get the really subtle stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
Mm.
It was more
Uh,
the sort of stuff I meant, because usually if it's overt, they know what they're saying.
yeah,
or when
yeah,
people are trying to be positive, you know, like that thing with representation that, so at one point, if there was a gay character on telly, they are representative of all the gay people in the world. And it's sort of sometimes the danger with disabled influencers can be they can inadvertently become a mouthpiece for everyone with that condition.
yes.
And they don't always acknowledge that their experience is their experience and other people's might not match.
I think that's totally right. And also quite often to, the disability influencers do tend to, I think some of them feed into the kind of bravery overcoming narrative. And I think it's
Mm.
hard because I think like so this is where we can talk about LinkedIn because I joined LinkedIn for the business. And I don't know if either of you are either of you on LinkedIn?
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
You
Yeah.
We're
are because I
LinkedIn.
saw the yeah. And there's way more disability representation on LinkedIn than I thought there was ever.
I've
Like,
found that recently. It's like, and it all of a sudden, I don't know if it's because it's recently who I've connected with
yeah.
over the last year or so, but all of a sudden it's like, and it's there.
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah,
It's
Mm.
it's huge and it's massive and it's but it's really interesting because everyone's playing the same game because the algorithms are the same. So like you have to have a photo of your face for any one of your posts, even if it doesn't actually connect with your post. You have to write in that very weird particular LinkedIn style, which I'm learning is also a Facebook style, where you write really fucking long posts. Like absurdly long posts, except everyone's getting AI or a copywriter to write them for them because otherwise you can't sustain writing these ridiculously long posts that everyone's expecting. Um, and often it's this kind of like, either let me educate you on something you didn't know, or
Mm.
it's how I overcame something, or it's and again, kudos to the people who are doing it. I know I can think of a few who I know who are like always having to do the kind of activism about things, so transport, for example, like people who are mobility aid users or who are blind who are using transport and having like, just stuff happen over and over and over again and having to be in that kind of like complaint mode. It's no kind of criticism of them, but just it's like those are the sorts of genres that I think I keep kind of seeing. And but yeah, it's sometimes when I first joined, a lot of the ones on my feed were all specifically white, like conventionally attractive white women with ADHD influencers. And that was all I had
Mm.
for a while. And I got really annoyed with it because it was just like, I don't know what this is doing. I'm not quite sure if this is that thing where we end up with representation, but it's like you take what the normal person is who's represented and you just just slightly to the left and add a little
Yeah,
bit of
yeah. Like you
sprinkle
can
of
have
addition.
one thing that takes you away from the norm, but
Yeah,
as long as you're pretty, we'll give you a bit more leeway.
yeah.
But
You're pretty,
you
you're white, you've got long blonde hair.
you
There were a lot of
express
lovely things
things
there.
in the way that I would also express things,
Yeah,
and yeah,
yeah. And as long as you stay within those kind of boundaries, I think it's a bit different for guys. And I think that if you're gender marginalized, I think you're in a kind of different ball game entirely. But because you've got multiple things going on that kind of take you outside of the norm. But I think it's it's getting better. I don't know what you think about. I feel there's a lot more of us doing stuff visibly, and that public uptake online from thoughtful people who were actually invested in being online to network sincerely and to kind of like to kind of be their authentic selves rather than just logging in anonymously and just like throwing shit.
Yeah,
Like little kind of, just internet monkeys, right?
yeah,
Not those.
it's. I think it's also sort of having examples there helps because like there was one point when, say, every year for Mental Health Awareness Week, everyone would give a sob story, and that was what you did.
Right.
And that was what happened. But then other people started actually being a bit more honest at other points in the year. And it was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. And it's like, once the first person's through the door, it frees up other people to say, okay, I'm allowed to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a really good point. I think it cuts in lots of ways. So I can, again, this isn't a general online one, but it was digital within like, my academic field. There was a thing where that started to happen where some really prominent people suddenly stood up and went, actually, this whole time I've been struggling with all these mental illnesses. And everyone was like, oh my God, you're so brave for disclosing it. And because I'm really curmudgeonly, just got really annoyed. Because it's like, what about the rest of us who haven't managed to like, have a 25-year career while hiding that, and that's not to say
yeah,
that that
Mm,
wasn't a struggle for that person, but that person's failing to come out sooner basically took the bridge away from anybody who was trying to come up behind in a right. It wasn't.
yeah,
It
yeah,
didn't take the bridge
mm,
away, but they weren't. Part of that kind of sitting in. Let me rephrase that. Part of sitting in that fear of disclosure space, which again I completely understand, can sometimes, well, you know, it prioritizes your fear for yourself above the solidarity that can be productive and constructive for other people in the same space. And it kind of almost, it guarantees that anyone else who's there is either a fluke and has nothing to do with your presence. And so, these were like seasoned profs who, like I said, had like very like starry careers.
mm.
And it was all like online. There's a video and there's a statement. Everyone was really like, oh my God, it's so good. And it was just a bit like,
it's also things like the recent thing of like celebrities doing bad things and then going, oh, but I'm autistic, I've got ADHD, I'm disabled, so anything like that, and it's like you're now using it as an excuse for bad behaviour.
yeah,
And so
Yeah.
anybody who was in that fear space of coming out is now going to take a further step back.
yeah,
Yeah,
100%.
it's also sometimes the misguided things, like a well-known mental health charity did a campaign that basically consisted of, you'd think Becky was normal, but she was mental. And it was supposed to be like, hidden disability, you don't know what someone's going through. I wouldn't say it was entirely effective, and we didn't put those posters up in the student union because we didn't feel they were constructive.
I
Yeah,
mean, so on the sort of open and honest thing, I mean, at one point, a couple of years back, in my various like networking groups, I actually put up a post said, I am struggling for money. Here's an offer, grab it so I can pay my bills.
yeah,
And I was told that you can't say that. You shouldn't tell people you're struggling. It looks bad on your business. So I'm being honest. And
yeah,
I actually got a lot of people messaging me saying, thank you for being honest.
Mm,
And I think it's sort of the same thing with disability. So especially when I revamped my website a couple of years ago, it's like I'm actually putting it front and center. I am disabled. I struggle with this. I don't work a 9 to 5
yeah,
because I can't. So no, if you want office hours and like me at the end of the phone constantly, I'm not going to work for you.
no,
But if you want, say, this is the work, it needs to be done by this date, I will have that done for you.
yeah,
And it's just about being honest about how you work and working
mm.
differently. And it's like, I don't get the whole, oh, you can't say that. So, but it's my life. I'll be
Yes.
honest.
Well, it's also the pressure to be the perfect example of whatever condition you have or
Yeah,
disability or whatever else. It's like, oh, well, you're the only person we know with that. So you have to do your best and try hard and overcome things. And that's just too much pressure. Like, do you know what? I'm existing and I'm doing stuff.
Yeah.
That's enough. Like, without being an inspiration to people. That's
yeah,
Definitely not being an inspiration. So a whole Stella Young kind of like avoiding the inspiration porn thing. But I think you're totally right. There is this kind of there is this sort of snowball effect that comes from disclosure that's a really positive thing. And that I mean, I wonder if it's because we're kind of neurodivergent to begin with, where you're just like, oh, there's a social norm around not saying this. Oh, fuck it. Like it doesn't really matter because
yeah.
it's kind of like, well, that doesn't make sense to me, so I'm not going to do it. And B, it's this kind of thing where it's like, it's not practical, because I don't want other people to form an expectation of me that's based on a kind of like imagined non-disabled version of me, as opposed to being the actual one that's like, made of chaos and generally like has to kind of go and lie down on my face sort of fairly regularly. So we do this in the business where in the end, I ended up putting something in our foot where it's just like, literally, we are a team of disabled, chronically ill, and neurodivergent people. Please do not expect like a response anytime within the next, 24. It takes us 24 to 48 hours to kind of read your emails. We'll be in touch. We read everything, but we don't necessarily keep normal business hours. A bit like you, Joe. We don't, we're not going to be, we might email you at weird times.
Mhm.
I,
But
I get asked, why were you working at 2 a.m.? Because I was awake with a working brain.
yeah, because I
Yeah, the number
could.
of times we'll message each other. Why are you up at 3 in the morning? It's like, why are you up at 3 in the morning? It's like, "Mm."
Hmm. Oh, yeah, and I always forget send later. The whole like send later or schedule post doesn't occur to me. The now like inappropriate things where I'm like, oh, I haven't done a LinkedIn post or a Facebook post for a few days. I'll post one now. It's 11 p.m. No one's gonna read that. Like schedule it for tomorrow at 10.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Forget that one completely. Like just straight out of my brain. But
I'm
it's
about 50-50 on scheduling emails. It's like, I've emailed this person, it's like, I should schedule it for the morning.
yeah.
Half the time it's just, and it's gone.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's done now. Woo!
Yeah, well, I think also we think like slightly different. It was different, when people had Blackberries that would beep at you every time you got an email. Like,
Yeah.
I don't think anyone does that anymore.
I think everyone just has their notifications on mute, and if they don't, I'm always a bit like, what's that about? Why
Yeah,
you don't have it on silent?
you do not disturb, although I always read it as Dungeons and Dragons and always will.
As you should, as you should.
And you definitely should, yeah. Um, no, I'm just it's really interesting though, because it is just like, and then we get this a lot in hiring, is that whenever we have a steady stream of people who want to come and work for the company, because we prioritize recruiting disabled, chronically ill, and neurodivergent freelancers. We try and build kind of like this disability first sort of structure into the business, and we have to because I need it and everybody else needs it. But I'm always a bit sad actually, whether like, oh, there aren't that many places that are offering this. Because I think, to go back to the business question, a lot of people who are disabled, I would imagine that a significant proportion of disabled business owners are actually solo
Yeah,
outfits, or they're working in small kind of networks and they're
Mm.
not in a position where they're recruiting other freelancers. And
yeah.
so it's one of the things that the world doesn't have enough of is kind of like accessible workplaces. We could do a whole other episode on this. I could talk about this for like hours and days and days and days.
We absolutely could.
You
I
know.
mean, oh, it's currently, I've taken a step back from my business, apart from a few clients, because my health took a nosedive this year.
Mhm.
And it's like, I simply can't keep up with the workload. So I'm doing real well for the ones I've still got.
Yeah.
And then it's like, my plan is to then rebuild my business as an agency. So I'm not doing everything.
Yes.
And yeah, I will absolutely, like you, go to people who are neurodivergent or disabled or chronically ill, because I understand. And it's
Yeah.
like, I don't need someone who's going to be there 9 to 5, because those are not the people I'm targeting.
And the thing is, as well, is that I often think about and this is like, preaching to the converted and to the choir, no doubt, but like the skills that people have, like there's just an enormous amount of talent, I think, in disabled, chronically and neurodivergent kind of people's heads and brains and hands and bodies themselves, and that actually it's really underutilized because of the fact that most places won't be accessible in the way that we try
Yeah.
and utilize it.
Mm.
And that if you can, and it's hard also to build a workflow that, I'm having this with my team at the moment because we've been doing some recruiting, and they're like, oh well, and they're, they're all the same as me, but they come and they say things like, oh well, we need to make sure that X has ownership for Y, and I'm like, yeah, but what if they're sick? If they're sick and they have ownership for Y, then
Mm.
we're going to need somebody else to step in and make sure that that client, the work gets delivered at the end of the day, or that the socials get scheduled, or that the sales outreach happens, or whatever the kind of function is. And so we're having to think sideways around like how do you create ownership but not make it so that things sit in somebody's inbox that no one else can access because
Mhm.
they're responsible for, so a client account management structure, for example, where you have, 3 people on a team and everyone's responsible for a different client. Well, if one of them's sick, then that's a third of your clients that don't get dealt with,
Yeah.
right? There's all these kind of different ways of doing it. And so I've been kind of, do you give people ownership of building the system that everyone adheres to, right? So that everyone has input. We're about to go through this now again, but like, everyone inputs into what the system looks like that everyone participates in, but trusts that actually it all otherwise works a bit like a shared inquiry inbox in like a library or in a somewhere like that, where actually
Yeah.
something comes in and whoever's on the desk at the time and able to deal with it deals with what they can and then leaves the rest for the
Mhm.
next person who's on and it just kind of works through like that. But we hear so much feedback, and I get quite annoyed when I recruit because I hear so many stories of ableist employers, just like, people who should still be in post and the job's just gone because the employer won't be flexible, or
Mhm.
um people who are just really well, I get emails going like, even if I don't get the job, I'm really happy to know that you exist, that somebody's doing this, because
Yeah.
and it's like, oh, fuck
It shouldn't need
everyone.
to be said,
Oh,
but
it makes me want to punch things because I'm just like,
yeah.
just fuck the world, man. Like, everybody should just be better at this, because actually, and here's the thing, doing this recruitment recently, my partner's a manager in a retail context, for a kind of a multinational, and I have questions like, because it's happened a bunch, when I recruit to this demographic, I don't know who's going to stick, right? 6 to 8 weeks in post. I've done it. People go and apply for a job, they get a job because they're the right person, their health is worse than they think, their family circumstances or their housing circumstances are worse than they think, their clinical circumstances are about to have surgery, or it comes, stuff changes. And so you go through the whole recruitment process and they land, and then you're like, we can't actually get started now, it's not going to work out. And, I end up talking, I have to really stop myself from talking about that as if it's a distinctive risk to hiring this demographic. Because
Mhm.
actually, when you work in, I hate calling it normie land, but it is non-disabled normal worlds, all that stuff happens. No one talks about it though.
Yeah.
Like,
Mhm.
Mhm.
everything that's every non-disability first company has hires that don't work out in the first 2 to 6 weeks, has staff who are secretly chronically ill, disabled, neurodivergent, need extra support, and actually can't, find the job's not a good match for them despite thinking that it was to start with. All I have, circumstances at start. They're all just normal problems, but we spend culturally most of our time denying that they are because of how we set up kind of business and interacting in most spaces, I think.
I'd
Um,
agree.
yeah. Yeah, so I'm side note, I'd be happy to chat if you're interested in how do you become an agency. I'm sure you know other people, but I've gone through the transition of it being me doing the work to me to hiring the team. So
I've got
anytime.
a couple of people on my list to chat to, but I will absolutely add your name to that. Thank you.
Yeah, please do, because it's hard and it's a work in progress, because you
Yeah.
can do it, and then you can find perfect people who are really good and are the best at the job, and then they've just got to go and have an operation, or they have a health
Yeah.
collapse or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's, and how do you do it in a way also that's like no hard feelings? Because I think, like, we've got a motto in the company that, like, I just think life's hard enough. Life's hard enough anyway. Life's hard enough if you're disabled, chronically ill, and neurodivergent. If you're having to deal with a body that's unpredictable, you don't then need the extra nonsense about having to pretend that you're okay when you're
Yeah,
not.
yeah.
Pretend that you're not okay with the wrong thing. So you can't say that, oh, I'm having horrendous periods. You've got to pretend you've got stomach flu, or you can't say I'm having a depressive episode. You've got to pretend that you've broken your ankle or something like that, because you can't just
Yeah.
have a depressive episode or a horrendous period. Um, and also trusting that actually, I think, maybe naively, that when you're talking to and about disabled, chronically ill, and neurodivergent people, that they are the least likely people to just like fob off work. Because generally we've got so much internalized baggage around, like, no, I've just got to try, I've just got to try, I can't cancel.
Yeah, it's the
Mm.
constant guilt of, no, I've got to do this.
Yeah, exactly. Regardless.
Anyway, I think that's a good place to wrap up. Karen, would you like to finish us off?
Yeah, so thank you for joining us. It's been a wonderful, wonderful episode. I think we've all genuinely learned a lot from that, if only about eyeballs. But it's every day's a school day. So Zara, is there anything you'd like to plug or let us know about that's exciting, useful, or entertaining?
I wish I could be entertaining, but I'm going to go for the useful and important in my world anyway. So as I mentioned, I have this social enterprise that specializes in transcription, closed caption, and digital accessibility services. And we would love to hear from anybody who is in the market for transcripts, closed captions, but also we have launched recently and are continuing to develop a digital accessibility quiz. I think the link is going to be in the bio, where if you are an online business, course creator, or membership owner, you can go and do our little quiz and see whether or not you are a digital accessibility novice or you are a digital accessibility expert. And we have all kinds of resources planned for the autumn to support you on that journey, because we're on a mission to just raise the bar, and just help everybody who's working often very solo, often without huge amounts of resources themselves, to just do a bit better, in ways that we think are really easy and straightforward. So check us out.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to give that a look because, as we discovered from our conversation with Lisa a few weeks back on accessibility, there's a lot more we could be doing and lots of things I hadn't considered. So, yeah, there's no harm in saying, yeah, new things to learn.
Yeah, we can always kind of move forward with it. And just thanks so much to you both. It's been a pleasure. I feel like I've been hanging out with old friends. Within the first 5 minutes of us logging on, like I said, we were talking about all kinds of weird and wonderful facts about the body, and then about the lack of a British constitution, and then we went somewhere else as well. I can't even
Slap
remember.
bracelets.
But slap bracelets, slap bracelets. In fact, Karen, you have to tell them the fact, though. I'm sorry that you've been on an investigation to find out
Oh,
what's inside a slap bracelet.
okay. Based on my investigation, which is about 100 slap bracelets, they all contain tape measure, and that's what makes them slap. But it's literally bits of chopped up tape measure, and it's not even so they can easily cut it to the right length because they don't always line up like that. I was shocked and astounded. You should be too.
When you first told me that, we've never met either before, so this was just a great first encounter. But when you first told me that, and that you'd been on a journey of trying to find out what was inside them, I'm not gonna lie, I imagined it was maybe 5 to 10 that you had been cutting up to find out the insides of. But obviously, I think 100's just fantastic, just great.
There may have been some migraine purchases as well. I got a little bit giddy, but we've all been there. Or maybe you haven't, but that's an insight into my world. So thank you everyone for joining us for Three Spoonies on online representation. We'd love to know your thoughts in the comments, no matter how random they are. And don't forget to subscribe for our weekly podcast and leave us a lovely review. You can also buy us a coffee if you like what we do. Mine today is a green tea pina colada bubble tea. Links will be in the show notes, not to the bubble tea, just for all the useful stuff we talked about earlier. We'll see you next week for our community questions. Have a great day and keep track of your spoons.